Once they engaged us, it was a green light. War's on, let's fight. And I was able to return fire, and then before I ultimately, passed out and fell off the wall, and he took off my helmet. He was like, "No, well, your head's." My head was just blown out and blood everywhere. He could see my brain, skull fragments everywhere. The me that was still in the hospital, that was inpatient at Walter Reed and at Palo Alto, he would be so stoked to see the things I'm doing now, because it's made me a better father. It's made me a better husband. It's made me a better brother. It made me a better friend. I appreciate life so much more now than I think I ever would have had I not sustained my injuries and gone through the things that I have.
All right, welcome to the Rad Dad Podcast. This is episode 20. I have my new friend Jordan Stevenson here.
Hello.
We met through our mutual barber, who's also named Jordan.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we made the connection. And I'm
shout out to
super
Jordan
happy.
the barber.
Yes, shout out to Jordan.
And boys and fellas.
And just to get started, tell me a little bit about your upbringing, where you grew up, and your childhood.
I'm from Elk Grove, California. If you don't know where that is, it's right by Sacramento.
Okay.
California, but it's like 45 minutes, 30 minutes south of Sacramento proper.
Okay.
Used to be a little cow town. It's not anymore. When I grew up, it was a little cow town, and now it's not.
Yeah. So was your childhood like playing out in the forest, riding bikes?
Man, I wish we had a forest, but
Really?
I was on my bike
Yeah.
everywhere. And I had the tightest core group of friends that I'm still friends with to this day.
Really?
We're still all really close and still get along. My absolute best friend, his name's Kevin Tatum, and we see each other regularly. And as we get into more of my story, he came to visit me while I was still in the hospital. And so that core group of friends I still have today.
That's rare. You don't hear that often. I mean, the theory is that you cycle friends every 7 years or whatever, but to have a childhood friend that's still your friend is rare.
I could see that. There was definitely a time frame where we weren't friends, and then we reconnected.
Yeah.
Post
awesome.
my injuries and things like that.
Cool. Well, I guess there's no time like the present. Let's get into your story.
As I was bringing it up.
Yeah.
So I grew up Elk Grove, California. I was always a knuckle dragger, meathead. Sports and athletics was my game. I got a scholarship to run track and field at Sacramento State University, and I went and did that, and I got into school because of athletics, not because of academics, and that became very abundantly clear once I got to school, and I joined a fraternity, and that was pretty much the end of college for me at that point, for I'm sure many similar stories like that. And my fallback was that I wanted to join the military. I had friends that had gone in, that had served, that had deployed. I was a freshman in high school when 9/11 happened, and that always left an impact on me. And I felt like I was strong enough physically and mentally that I should feel that calling and go and do it. And so once college flopped, that was my fallback plan, was to go back to being a meathead. And
did it take much thinking, or did you know pretty quick, this isn't working out, I'm going military?
No, I knew pretty quickly. It had always been something that I had in the back of my mind that I wanted to do. My grandpa was a fighter pilot during World War II, and I always idolized him. So I guess it was in me anyways to want to go do that. And that core group of friends that I was talking about, we played a game called War, and we would play all day long, up and down the streets, through people's backyards. No one cared. We were just these crazy boys running around having fun. So
yeah,
at a young age, I was obsessed with the idea of combat, and as I matured, that desire matured, and then I had the opportunity to follow through and to chase my dreams and do it.
Awesome. So from the beginning, what'd you join? What was your MOS?
So I'm Navy, so it's not an MOS.
Okay.
Or if it is, we didn't call it MOS.
Gotcha.
It's a rating.
Mm-hmm.
In the Navy, it's called my rate. So I went in. The only thing I wanted to do was Special Forces. That was it. That was the only thing I was going to do. I wasn't going to sign any contract unless I was going to get to do Special Forces, that was the only thing I wanted to do. And, excuse me. So I signed my contract with a special contract to go to BUDS, that I had guaranteed spot to go to BUDS, to SEAL training. And signed the dotted line, and a couple weeks later, I was off to Chicago for boot camp,
Awesome.
which
So
was a walk in the park compared to what I was gonna get to.
yeah, so you had to do boot camp before you went to Buds, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to become a sailor in the Navy before you can go to Buds or any other rating that the Navy has for you.
Okay. Cool. So from there,
What was Buds like?
yeah.
That was, they say it's the hardest training in the world. It absolutely is the hardest training in the world. I went through 3 different classes. My first class, my appendix burst during that phase of training. So then I had to have my appendix removed, and then that rolled me back to the next class. And during that next class, my second class, I got what's called swim-reduced pulmonary edema, SIPE. Too much water and fluid in my lungs. I basically gave myself pneumonia with seawater because you're in the water a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I had to recut, and then they rolled me back after that because I couldn't continue. This was right before Hell Week started. So I couldn't go into Hell Week being sick. And then my third class, I made it to Hell Week. And I was so motivated. I finally made it to Hell Week. Once I get through Hell Week, I'm done with the first phase that I've already done 3 times. And I was like so motivated, ready to go in. Like, I've already taken the worst things that could happen to me through this. Like, I'm just going to mow through this. And I did not mow through it. What I ended up finding out later in my military career, my knee got really swollen and really painful. And being a former track and field athlete, runs where I usually excel. And during one of the runs, I was in the back of the pack. And that's not typical for me. But my knee was just so painful that by the time we finished the run, I couldn't continue Hell Week anymore because my knee was so painful. It wasn't later until I finished other training and after skydiving school that I learned that I had completely torn my ACL. But they rolled me out of class and they med drop. I got dropped out of Buds for medical reasons. But I never quit. That was the thing I still hang my hat on is that I didn't quit, but I just my body physically couldn't handle it anymore. And then I built a good reputation for myself that I was recommended to look into EOD, which is explosive ordnance disposal. I would still be under the umbrella of special forces because so they still wanted me to be one of their guys because I put out and I got sick, I got hurt, and I had surgery, and I still kept coming back and putting out, and so they wanted to keep me around, and so I got in my papers to go to EOD school. So they shipped me back off to Florida to go through Navy dive school, and then from Navy dive school to EOD school, all in Florida. So quite the pipeline to finally get to where I would end up. And so I've already mentioned that academics wasn't my strong suit. It wasn't until I was already knee deep in EOD school that EOD school is one of the hardest academic schools in the military. Awesome. But
they didn't tell you that.
And then I had no idea until I was like already in it. And if you fail 2 tests, you're gone.
Okay.
So tests are very heavily emphasized. And so now like the pressure's really on to study and to grind. And I wasn't going to allow myself to fail again. I could push through the physical pain, but I had to teach myself or force myself to study and to really put the nose to the grinder with getting in the books and knowing my stuff. I made it through EOD school. Luckily, I did. I had a great time doing it. Built a lot of good friends and friendships, and from EOD school, I was originally supposed to go to Sigonella, but I was married at the time. She didn't want to go to Sig, so I talked to the people that were going to send me where I needed to go, and I talked them into like, look, I'm from California. There's a lot of spots that go to California. Is there any way you could figure a way to get me to California to one of those mobile units in California? and they were able to squeeze me into EOD Mobile Unit 1. And so from EOD school, I went to San Diego, back to San Diego for EOD Mobile Unit 1. Stationed on the exact same base that I had been for a year prior for Buds.
Okay.
So I was back in those old stomping grounds.
Yeah. So how long was that pipeline to get back to California? How long did that take you?
Probably 2 years.
2 years. Okay.
From, yeah. So I had already been in for 2 years if you include boot camp, Buds, and
Yeah.
EOD school. So by the
Okay.
time I'd already been in the Navy for 2 years by the time I actually finally got a job to do in the Navy.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool.
And then I was on a Navy dive team for most of the time I was there, which is finding, locating, and disarming and getting rid of underwater type of bombs and
Okay.
mines, which was really rad. I got to work with dolphins and do a lot of really cool stuff.
That's crazy. So you were stationed in California, but did you travel for work?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Travel a lot. It's called TDY.
Okay.
Temporary duty.
So it's quite a bit shorter.
A lot of short duty. And doing like Secret Service stuff and all the Gucci stuff that EOD gets to do, all the fun, like staying in nice hotels, following around these dignitaries, and
okay,
real rough stuff.
Yeah.
And then I performed well on that team that I got pulled to be a part of a new team that we were developing. EOD commonly deploys with SEALs and Army Special Forces and other Special Forces groups, but Rangers typically didn't have us with them. So I was going to be a part of the first group of Navy EOD guys to deploy with Army Rangers. The reason that they attach Navy EOD guys to these teams is because we know how to skydive, we know how to fast rope. All of the forms of insertion into combat that Special Forces can do, we can do. So that's why we get assigned the cool guy jobs.
Okay, that makes sense. That's awesome.
So I got assigned to 75th Ranger Battalion or Bravo Company. So and that was November of 2011 that we were going to be deploying to Afghanistan.
Were you pumped? I mean, you'd done all this training.
Psyched.
Yeah.
Years. This is 4-5 years now at this point of training to do this job that I had been dreaming about since I was a kid playing war in my backyard with my friends.
Yeah.
I'm finally going to get to go do it. And this is the flight over. Everyone's stressed out and nervous, and I was just so excited. I was just ignorantly excited about war, not understanding the consequences that can and ultimately followed with my experience in combat.
So how old were you at this time?
I was 25 years old.
Okay. Cool. So talk to me about deployment. You said Afghanistan.
So Sharana, Afghanistan. So here's the fun part. So 5 years of training, I was there for 8 days.
Oh, wow.
Before my injury, we went out on a mission and I was wounded. So all that time for this much actual combat experience.
And what was the length of your deployment supposed to be?
It was supposed to only be a 6-month deployment.
Which is pretty normal, right?
Maybe 4. And no, typically you're out there for like a year.
Oh, is it that long?
But our workload is so heavy that they shorten ours so that we don't get burned out.
Okay.
Because we operate every night. So it was the 8th night that I was there, but it was my 8th mission because we went out every single night.
Okay. That makes sense.
So at least I still got to do some parts of my job before I got hurt.
So talk to me about landing in that country and kind of what was going through your head and your mindset.
I was there in December of 2011, and you hear about how hot it is and how like the desert just sucks, but it was really cold, like painfully cold. -30 degrees at night.
Like desert cold.
Like high mountain, really cold. Yeah. And so I didn't know how people lived there. But being the naive green guy, finally, in combat, I just like a deer in headlights on base, go here, do this. I was just like, okay, I'll do whatever you tell me to do, boss. And followed my orders. And
Yeah.
the benefit of being with the Ranger team that I was on is we had our own kind of separate compound with our own separate ID badges, where we had our own gym, our own food, and it was really cush.
Hmm.
So even then, I guess I wasn't living the real deployment life style that some guys get to live.
So take me through that 8th night.
That's when it was -30. Ultimately, that probably ended up being a benefit to me because it slowed my heart rate down, so that I didn't end up bleeding out after I was wounded. We were assaulting a compound for what's called the HVT, which is a high value target. And so we were going after a specific person because whoever told us what to go do.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but this was a bad guy, and it was our job to go get him. So all right, let's go get this guy. So the way that a lot of these homes are designed is they have these big walls that surround their compound. Like we have fences, they have walls. And inside of the compound, there were vehicles, multiple vehicles. So me being the bomb guy, they wanted me to get eyes on inside the compound before my guys went in, so that if one of these vehicles was rigged to blow, my guys didn't walk into an ambush and we didn't lose my team. So I was tasked to go up to the top of the wall and get eyes on inside the vehicles and look for anything that made me suspect that there were any VBIEDs, vehicle-borne IEDs. And the last thing I remember was radioing to my team on my comms on my shoulder that I didn't see anything that made me suspect that there were any IEDs. And that's it. That's the last thing I remember of that night. What happened, so from this point on, this is all secondhand. It happened to me. I was there, but it's just what I was told happened.
Right.
The guy, the HVT that we were looking for, had come out of the building holding his wife in front of him as a shield, and opened fire on me. Looking back, I probably silhouetted myself against the moon, so I gave him a target to shoot at. But one of those rounds out of his AK-47, edit that part out, a 7.62, ripped through my helmet and through my head. When the bullet, since we were in such close proximity, the bullet went through the front of my helmet, probably about like an inch above my eyebrow. The bullet entered my skull, went all the way through and out through the back of my head and out through the back of my helmet. And so my helmet at home, I have a hole in the front and a big hole out of the back where the bullet went in and out. And once the adrenaline wore off of the gunfight, I dropped 30 rounds back down range. I don't remember any of it, but I was able to shoot back. And ultimately our team got the superior firepower on my team that was there. Because once they engaged us, it was a green light, war's on, let's fight. And I was able to return fire, and then before I ultimately, passed out and fell off the wall. And the young man, the private low enlisted Army guy that was holding my ladder for me, as I fell down this, almost 30-foot wall, he said it looked like I was floating as I fell down the wall. And to my benefit, there was some snow on the ground. Maybe that cushioned my fall as I hit the ground. With all my gear on, I weigh well over 300 pounds with my own weight and all my gear. And I didn't break a single bone in my body from that fall.
Wow.
Minus, the gaping head wound in my from the bullet.
Did he know what had happened, or he didn't know until you had fallen?
The original, so they knew that I had blood all over me, and they called for medic. Nobody knew exactly what my wounds were. So the original call to my team that eventually went to my family back at home was that Jordan was shot through the neck. Jordan got shot in the neck. And it wasn't until the medic got to me and he was doing a full head to toe on me to check and see checking for other exterior wounds that they could treat, that I told him my head hurt.
So you were conscious?
I was conscious and I was talking. I don't remember a lick of it, but
wow.
I was talking to him. I told him my head hurt, and he took off my helmet. He was like, "No, well, your head's my head was just blown out and blood everywhere. He could see my brain, skull fragments everywhere. And they got on me, and I'm at this point I'm starting to throw up now too. And that medic, Anthony Moreno, kept his hand. Oh, not Anthony Moreno, Robert Moreno. It's Anthony. There was two medics, Anthony Truce and Robert Moreno. And Robert Moreno kept his hand on my head from that moment for another hour or so until I got into surgery. He never let go of me. He was with me the whole time. And I attribute my survival to his dedication and hard work to keep me alive and to save me. And they got me on a stretcher, got me in the helicopter and out of the target zone.
So what was the flight time from there back to base?
Probably 45 minutes.
Is that long?
I think so.
Okay.
And when they landed, the whole operating team, the whole medical team was waiting on the flight deck when the helicopter landed. So they were on me as soon as I touched the ground. To the point that when they got me into the surgery room, like I went straight into surgery, obviously. But Moreno had to be pulled away from me because he had been so focused on me that it was hard for him to let go of me. And now it's in their hands to save me.
Okay. So I guess my next question is, what did the surgery consist of?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think they removed a large portion of my skull so that my brain could swell, and because the swelling alone could kill me.
Yeah.
That's like when people get like brain bleeds, that's what kills them, is the swelling and the pressure inside your skull.
Yeah.
So they removed my skull so that my brain could handle the swelling and the pressure. So I looked like an alien with my brain all swollen and half my head gone. But at that point, I went to sleep. I was in a coma until February. So I was cruising.
So did they fly you back to the U.S. or you were?
I went from Afghanistan to Germany, and they flew my wife, my mom, and my sister to Germany to say their goodbyes. They didn't think I would survive. I wasn't supposed to survive. Every medical diagnosis up to that point was, your son's not going to make it. Your husband's not going to make it. And then once I started to show some signs that I could make it, or that Jordan might be able to survive, then it was, if your son survives or your husband survives, more than likely he's never going to be able to speak to you, and he's never going to be able to walk, and he's going to have very limited use of his right arm. I would have very similar symptoms as a stroke patient would.
Okay.
So even then it was, if he survives, life's still going to be very difficult, and your son's never going to be the same as he used to be.
So you were in a coma for 2 months?
About 2 months.
About 2 months. What was your first memory?
So I've dove accidentally. I've been underwater with sharks. I've been near explosions. I've jumped out of planes multiple times. I've done a lot of really scary things. But the single scariest thing that I've ever experienced is waking up from that coma.
Wow.
Because I was just in a gunfight in my mind. I was just there. I was in this gunfight, and now I'm waking up in a hospital room, in a dark hospital room by myself, because I still wasn't supposed to wake up yet. Nobody expected me to wake up when I did. And I woke up by myself in a dark hospital room with I was trach, so I had tubes coming out of my neck. I had IVs and things sticking out of me, and this is what I'm waking up to, is this robot. I'm connected to a robot, and I remember trying to sit up, and I still don't know what happened to me, so I don't know that my right arm and my right leg are paralyzed from the brain injury. So I tried to sit up, and my left arm I could plant to push myself up, but I couldn't move my right arm. And that was really scary to me. It was Was that, and then I remember thinking, did it get blown off? Did I lose my arm? Like trying to recall
Yeah.
what actually happened.
Okay.
And I'm sure the nurses at that point saw my monitor from the nurse's desk start to spike and bounce around like something's going on, and I remember them coming in and the lights coming on and them seeing that I'm awake, and I'm sure for them that was even a panic moment, like we don't know what to do. He's awake. How do we take care of him now? And I remember them trying to calm me down. And then one of them, at all the VA hospitals, there's what's called a Fisher House, which is where families of wounded vets and vets getting treatment can stay. So my family was staying at the Fisher House in Bethesda, Maryland at Walter Reed. So I don't, it was sometime in the middle of the night that my family was called and notified that Jordan woke up.
So this was in the U.S. at this point?
This was in the U.S. Yeah, this is at Walter Reed.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I skipped the part from flying from Germany to Walter Reed Hospital in the States. I was sleeping, so I don't remember that part.
No,
anyways.
you don't. Yeah, that makes sense.
But so they notified my family. So my family came in. So my wife, my mom, my sister are there to kind of help explain to me what happened and where I am and what's going on. And you were shot. And right now they're telling us that you might not be able to walk anymore. And I'm trached, so I can't talk yet either. So I have an iPad I'm writing on. And
Wow.
And even then, they thought my brain was going to be so scrambled that I wouldn't be able to even write or make words or understand anything that anyone's even talking to me. And I'm writing on an iPad, telling them like I'm okay and giving them thumbs up. Like, all right, let's on to the next step. What do we got? What do I have to look at now? What's my life going to look like? How am I going to get better?
So was your mindset like immediately like, okay, let's attack this. Let's
I would really like to say that that was my mindset immediately. It is now, and it became that, but it was kind of even then I was on so much medication that I was in such a daze that it was really scary. My whole life I've been an athlete and I've been physically capable of most things that I tried. That it was really scary to think that I wasn't going to be able to do those things anymore. But it eventually came to the point of, all right, let's see what I can do. And what really lit my fire, I don't like being told what to do. Why I was in the military, I don't know. But I remember one of the doctors coming in to explain to me more, now that they knew that I could understand a little bit of what was going on, to tell me of what my symptoms and diagnosis was going to be, that I wasn't going to be able to walk again, and that I lost use of my right arm, and that it was going to probably take me a while to redevelop my speech. And that lit me up. Like, they gave me something to prove somebody wrong. Like, all right, I'm going to show you what I can do. Like, don't tell me I'm not going to be able to do something. Now, then that's what got me going. I'm like, now, all right, on the next thing, let's show them what I can do. Let's show them how capable I am. And at that point, I was still thinking like, all right, I'm going to get better and I can deploy again. I could do it again. And I didn't want it to be over. This was my dream job and I wanted to get back at it. And I didn't want to lose that aspect of who I was. I wanted to still be that guy.
Yeah.
It hadn't hit me yet that guy is gone.
So I guess, when did you realize that you could talk? Because communication, I mean, just you being able to communicate with your family via iPad is a huge relief, I'm sure.
For them, yeah. It was a big relief that I could write and that I knew that I could spell.
Yeah.
And I could formulate sentences and words. Yeah. That was big for them.
So the next step, I mean, how long until, and what was it like realizing that you could talk and communicate?
So that's one of the funnest, the most exciting parts of my recovery that I remember was when I started talking again, because I wasn't supposed to ever talk again. So I was tricked.
Did you know that?
I had no idea that I wasn't supposed to be able to talk.
Yeah. Did they tell you that? Like, hey,
no.
Okay.
Well, I was tricked. So they told me that I wasn't gonna be able to talk because I had the trach, and But at some point, and I wish I remembered more in detail with the story of what I said, but I was able to. They have these little caps you could put on the end of your the end of the trach that blocks the air, so so it allows the air to go past the trach through your vocal cords.
Okay.
So I got this cap thing, and I was able to talk with the cap on, and that was a really exciting moment that I was able to talk, because the nurses and staff had been taking care of me for weeks at this point, but I'd never been able to talk to them. So now they could come in and talk to me, and now I'm a person. I'm not just a patient anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I can have a relationship with them, and recognize them and say, "Hey, what's up?" So that was really fun, that I was like talking to these people again now, and getting to talk to my wife and my family, and talk to my son on the phone. My son was 2 when I was shot.
Okay.
So getting to see him and talk to him was really fun and exciting for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if he says he remembers it. I don't know if he does, or if he just remembers us telling him the stories about it. But it was really important for me that I was able to talk to my son again, and to my family, and tell them that I'm okay. It's going to be okay. I went back to being the protector of my family, and like now I'm like, all right, now I need to figure out how to take care of me, but I need to take care of my family, let them know that I'm okay. Like life's going to be okay. And letting my son know Dad's still here.
Yeah.
Even though I had no idea what kind of dad I was going to be capable of being again, and how I was going to even manage helping to raise my son.
Yeah. So what was the time span that you were in the hospital? How long were you in the hospital until you could go home and continue recovering?
So I was in Walter Reed for, like I said, I woke up around February. It was around springtime that I was able to fly back to Palo Alto, California, to the VA in Palo Alto. I had the option of going to San Antonio VA or Palo Alto. That's where the polytrauma units are, the brain injury units are. And I'm from California, so obviously I picked to go to Palo Alto, and it's only an hour and a half, 2 hours away from my hometown.
Okay.
So I got to go there, and I spent a year in Palo Alto as an inpatient in Palo Alto, learning how to get better at talking, and that's where I learned how to start walking again and getting around, which was a very difficult, long process.
Was your mindset at that point just go get after it? Like, it's a physical challenge, and you've had those your whole life.
I thrive under the physical challenge, so absolutely.
Yeah.
I got sent back some of my stuff from deployment with my pre-workout, my intra-workout supplements, and I'm in the hospital back on my regiment.
Yeah.
Taking my pre-workout, and at this point, through the help of nursing staff, they taught me, and I taught myself how to how to transition from the bed to a wheelchair. Because mind you, I still had both legs at this point also, but I just couldn't use one of them. So I would use my left leg to steer and use my left arm to push. So I was back on my supplements, and I would get up, get in my wheelchair, push myself down to the physical therapy room, and get back into my workouts and doing what I could in there. There was a seated elliptical that I would try and get myself onto, and I would try and get on that in the mornings and try to push myself, and I wanted to see what I was going to be capable of. And I still believe that I was like, all right, I'm going to get better. I'm going to get back to my team, and I'm going to operate again. At that point. At that point, that's still what I wanted to do. I didn't want to take what they were telling me I wasn't going to be able to do.
Yeah.
I wanted to get better. That's what I wanted to do. That was my goal.
Was that your main motivator?
No. My main motivator was also, and I was just talking to somebody else this morning. My biggest motivator was also my biggest fear. I'll explain. My son that I was talking about, my 2-year-old son, my biggest motivator was my son. I wanted to be an example for him, and I desperately wanted to get back to being a dad. I mean, you're a dad now, I wanted to get back to taking care of my boy and being there for him and for my family. And But I say that it was my biggest fear also because I didn't know if I was going to be able to be a good dad anymore. Like, is my dad, am I going to be able to be a dad? And is my son going to be embarrassed of his dad because he's, he can't use his arm or he talks funny? Because I was still really slurry in my speech. If I am now, don't tell me. I'm just going to ride with confidence that I still sound clear enough. But I wanted to be, so my biggest motivator was to get back to being a dad. So that was my biggest motivator. We had steps up to the house that we were living in San Diego. And I built this story in my mind of showing up at home, walking up the stairs and walking into my house and picking up my son. And that was what pushed me. Was I need to be able to walk up the stairs and I need to be able to pick up my son. That was what pushed me.
You're super disciplined, you're a super determined person throughout your whole life. Were there any
yes.
Well, I mean, I think more than most, I would say, but were there any doubts that you experienced during that time that surprised you?
Probably initially. At this point, I would be lying to anybody that I'm this super motivated. There are moments of discipline that I've learned, but there are definitely times where I still feel like I want to quit and I don't want to struggle anymore. My leg hurts, my arm hurts, and I want to quit.
So in those moments, what do you do?
I remind myself of the reasons why I tried so hard in the first place. And I worked so hard to get where I'm at now that this is 10 years ago now over 10 years ago that I got shot now. The me that was still in the hospital, that was inpatient at Walter Reed and at Palo Alto, he would be so stoked to see the things I'm doing now. So I think back to that, Jordan, like how proud he would be of me now. And he doesn't deserve all the work that he put in for me to quit.
So if you could go back to Jordan 10 years ago and you have 5 minutes, what are you telling him?
Don't give up. Don't give up. It's hard, but it's going to be worth it. And one of the things that I talk to people about is unarguably my injuries are and probably will be one of the worst things that have ever happened to me. Like, I pray that, that this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. But I also could argue in the same sentence that it is one of the best things that's ever happened to me also. Because it's made me a better father. It's made me a better husband. It's made me a better brother. Made me a better friend. I appreciate life so much more now than I think I ever would have had I not sustained my injuries and gone through the things that I have.
Interesting. Was it hard for you to accept that at first?
I can say that
so
now.
Much good has come out of it.
I can say that now very, very proud and confidently, but it took me a long time to appreciate all the things that I've been through.
Gotcha.
And to lean into things when they get hard. Because I have learned now through all of the hard things that I've overcome that I know on the other side of that hardship, there's a lesson that I need to learn and that's going to make me stronger in the next phase of my life.
And are you able to realize that during the hard times? Because I feel like that's something I'm still working on. I want to have that mindset, that future mindset during the hard times, but I feel like it's so hard to keep that in mind.
Oh, of course. Like I said, I'd be lying if I didn't have those moments where I have that doubt. But I allow myself the opportunity to get past it. I feel like so often we get stuck and we don't give ourselves the opportunity to move past it. After, every night has its dawn, as they say. And I push through the hard stuff because I know on the other side of that, things get better. Things can't stay bad all the time. I won't let it. And I choose. I've developed the mindset that when you're having a hard time of thinking that, I choose to think about the positive. it's really easy to get stuck on the negatives and the what ifs and
You're right.
the scaries. But if I choose to think of the positives, then I'm that much better. So when, like a very small thing that I tell people to do is when someone says, "Hey, how you doing? How are you doing today?" Like that's your opportunity to set the tone for how your day is going to be. Like you could say, "Oh, I'm okay. I slept all right," or you could say, "I'm great. I'm alive today." And just from that little thing, how much better of a mindset you're setting yourself up for the rest of your day.
I love that. That's awesome. Take me through the decision of amputating your leg.
Wasn't a popular decision between me and my medical staff. So the process of learning how to walk again was, as I mentioned, very difficult. And it was kind of like I would learn how to walk. I would be learning how to walk only to hurt my ankle and hurt my foot, then to have to rehab that injury, then to rehab my walking again, then to do that same thing again, injure it, and then rehab that to rehab. And
Due to no filling in your foot.
I could move the larger muscles in my leg,
Okay.
but I didn't have any stability or control my ankle.
Okay.
So if I was on uneven surface or on rocks, I was going to roll my ankle.
Okay. Gotcha.
Or sprain it, and because of I couldn't feel it, it wouldn't be until later that I would notice the swelling in it and like, all right, I did something to my ankle. And so that was a cycle of just like annoying process. And being in the military, I have friends that don't have any legs, and I had both of mine, and they got around better than me. I was like, this sucks. And I wanted to be more active with my son again and do those kind of things. And I passed the idea to him, like, what do you, because they wanted to fuse my ankle. And at that point, I'm like, that will limit me even further with the things that I want to be able to do in my life. I still want to snowboard. I still want to do all these things again. I still have this grander idea of learning how to run again. I haven't yet, and I emphasize the yet on that one. But I still want to do those things. Whether or not they tell me I can, I think I can. I think I'll be able to learn how to do it. And I wanted to give myself the opportunity to learn how to do it. And prosthetics are so advanced now that I talk to them like, if you fuse me, I'll never get to do these things. If you give me a prosthetic, which is basically the same thing, giving me a fancy brace, then that will open up the opportunities for me to do more things again. And so through multiple discussions with multiple doctors, I convinced them that the good choice was to amputate my leg and give me a prosthetic leg that would open up more opportunities for me and to be more mobile, to get around better with my kid and be more functioning.
So it sounds like a lot of thought went into that decision.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of thought, and I had a Pinterest board of cool prosthetic legs that I thought were cool. Like, I want this one.
Yeah.
So while you're looking for your new Nikes, I'm looking for like the newest like Oser prosthetic foot.
Yeah, and I found out those are not cheap.
No, this one right here that I'm wearing is not cheap.
Yeah. Interesting. So we talked briefly at the gym last week, and you were explaining it was kind of an interesting spot where the bullet went.
I didn't get a chance to talk about my. Let me finish my leg on you.
Yeah.
So I got married in July of 2015.
Okay.
To my wife now. I had gotten divorced from my first wife. And so I got married to Sarah, my now wife, in July of 2015. And January of 2016, I was scheduled to get my leg amputated. So welcome to marriage.
So the decision was made before you got married?
Oh, no. It was made right after.
Okay.
So that summer leading up to January was when we made that decision. And it was through UCLA that I did the surgery.
Okay.
So welcome to marriage. You thought I was disabled before. Now my leg's gone.
Throw that into the mix.
So, but my wife was very supportive and there for me through it. And she was ready to support me and has with any crazy decision I've had of what I want to do. She's been there to support me through it. And she did and still is. And
awesome.
so January 5th of 2000, or January 3rd, sorry. January 3rd of 2016, I had my leg amputated.
Which was close to your anniversary of getting shot, right?
Yeah, in the military, your anniversary of when you were wounded in combat is called your Alive Day.
Your Alive Day.
So it was relative. I didn't even at that point. I wasn't even paying attention to that now,
Uh-huh.
and I still don't pay attention to it as much as I should or have in the past.
Gotcha.
It's just another day now.
Yeah. So you were explaining to me, it was an interesting spot where the bullet hit, because you gotta help me on this.
So the left side of your
explain
brain controls the right side of your body.
Okay.
So it flips, however, in your brain.
Okay.
So on the left side of your brain is also where your speech typically develops. In like 99 point whatever percent of the population, your speech develops on the left side of your brain. I'm left-handed. I've been left-handed my whole life. What a blessing there, right? So I got to keep my dominant hand. That's why I was still able to write on that iPad. So I kept my dominant hand, but because I'm so left-hand dominant and so right brain dominant, that my speech, I'm a micro percentage of the population where my speech mirrored on both sides of my brain.
So it developed on both sides.
Both sides of my brain. So
Okay.
when I was able to speak in the hospital, that's why it was so shocking to everybody.
Okay.
At that point, they didn't know that, well, he's been left-handed his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And so they didn't think that was even a possibility, that I had the dual hemispheric translation of words. And
Interesting. That's crazy. So talk to me about your experience with fatherhood. I mean, it was obviously a huge concern, through your recovery and the quality you could give to your kids and provide, and just talk to me.
Especially amputating my leg and that being a choice. At that point, it was just me, my son, and my wife. And I wasn't. My son was walking. He was doing his own thing. He could help take care of himself a little more. He was 5.
Mm-hmm.
So he was doing. He didn't need me as hands-on of a dad. But when I amputated my leg, my wife had just gotten pregnant, and so we're gonna have my second child, and that was scary. Like, how am I gonna do this? I only have one arm. How am I gonna be able to take? It was those same fears I had originally with my son of, how am I gonna be able to be a dad, and is my daughter gonna want me to be her dad? And every time my kids have proven me wrong. If you meet my son and you ask him about me, or even if you don't ask me about me, he'll tell you about me. My son will tell you about me before you even get the opportunity to ask him, because my son is proud of his dad. One of the things that I'm most proud of is for his 6th grade project, he did a wax museum,
Mm-hmm.
and they're allowed to pick somebody that they admire to be that's who they want to be in their wax museum.
Yeah.
And my son picked me and interviewed me for his project, and dressed like me in military fatigues. He shaved a scar. He shaved a line into the side of his head that mirrored my scar, and my son wanted to be me. I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
That's what every dad wants,
right? Exactly. Yeah. So all my fears of how I was going to be able to be, if I was going to be able to be a good dad again, my kids have assured me and shown me that I am a good dad, and I can be a good dad despite my limitations and things I can do. That they're proud of me regardless. And that has motivated me even more so to be more of an example for them. The saying, if you have daughters, you want to mirror the kind of, man that they'll find and that they'll meet and that they'll marry. And by the same token, I want to be an example to my son of the kind of man I want him to grow up to be. And I think that's now my goal is to set the example for them and to be an example for them. So I took all of my worries about being a dad, and now I'm amplifying them to make myself a better dad and to be better for them. And
so as far as fatherhood, what are some lessons you've learned that you may not have learned outside of fatherhood?
So with my life experience, with all the things that I've been through, I've mentioned how much more of an appreciation I have for life now. And the biggest example of that is my kids. Like the time I get to spend with my kids now is some of the most important time I have, is being with them. And they don't care if I only have one arm to throw them or not. They just like being around dad.
Yeah. Have you ever, when you wake up and you're not motivated or you're not in the mood, how do you push through that? Because you still have to be a dad. No matter what you're feeling, you still
I
have to
don't,
wake up and be a dad.
I don't. So my morning routine is one of my two daughters coming into our room, and I feel like they like Rochambeau or rock paper scissors of who's going to be the one that goes in and wakes us up.
Yeah.
So my wake up is your dad. I don't get to wake up and be like, all right, am I going to be dad today? I'm dad from the gate. But that appreciation I was talking about that I get to have, like I get to wake up and be a dad. I shouldn't be alive. I'm not supposed to be here. So that appreciation for being able to still be here is where I find that, like, how lucky am I that I get to have my daughters wake me up every day?
Right.
If I hadn't survived my injury, my daughters wouldn't exist. They would have never had an opportunity to be born.
Right.
So I'm blessed to have them. So it's hard for me when they don't come and wake me up in the morning. I'm like, it's like my morning wasn't set right. I didn't get that wake up that I need. Like I'm excited. I look forward to that wake up sometimes. I mean, there's obviously times I'm like, go back to bed, but I enjoy it. I try to find the enjoyment in it. Like, our kids aren't going to be little for forever. We hear people talk about that all the time. My daughters aren't going to want to come hop in bed with me every morning,
Yeah.
all the time. And so I'm trying to really embrace those moments and take that time to really connect with them and let them know like that their dad is excited to see them. And I want my daughters to know that I'll always be there for them. And one way that I do that is in the mornings when they come in to wake me up, that I'm not grouchy or mean to them, that I make sure that I'm, excited to see them, because when they come in, they're excited to see us. They've slept all night in their rooms and they're pumped to come and see us. So I want to try and mirror that with them, that I'm just as excited to be dad as they are to come in and see dad.
I love that. That's, like you said before, setting the tone. I've, I've noticed like people just like to be wanted, right? Like when you see someone and if you don't act excited, you'll get a completely different reaction than if you do act excited. And in the home, I think that's a very important lesson to learn as parents. Be excited when your kids are around. Show them that you love them, right?
And we want our kids to be excited to see us and to have a good relationship with us and listen to us. And I think part of that is building a trust, that they can trust us, that dads, that they can come and talk to me and they don't have to be afraid that they're going to upset me. And I get to set that tone every day, every morning when they come in, like, all right, if I'm excited to see them, I'm setting the tone for that day of how my relationship is going to be with them. And if I wake up grouchy the whole rest of the day, that's going to be the tone.
Yeah.
So I have that opportunity in the morning to dictate how we're going to interact. Am I going to be annoyed with them off the get, or am I just going to be excited and, all right, let's start the morning off. Let's have a good day today.
Right. I love that. Talk to me about what you're up to, what you're working on these days.
I am currently writing a book. It's a long process that I've learned, but I'm enjoying it. I'm trying to enjoy it. The having to reflect on all these things that make me vulnerable isn't always fun to do, because I still think I'm this roughneck, hard ass military dude, and being vulnerable is difficult. But that's supposed to come out. Excuse me. I'm supposed to have that released sometime this summer. I'll have it published for people to purchase and to read. So check it out.
Yes.
And so what I've learned is I lean into the challenge. I like to lean into challenges because I know that growth is around the corner, and I want to set that example for my kids that when things get hard, lean into it. Don't be afraid of the hard things that we're going to experience in life, because they're going to happen to us one way or another. You can't dodge every hardship that's going to come, because they're going to come. So I lean into it. So I'm at a point now where I search them out now. Like, all right, what's my new challenge going to be? What's the next hard thing that I could embrace and push through? So this summer, the goal is to ride my bicycle from San Diego all the way back to the doctors in Bethesda, Maryland that told me I was never going to walk again. That's the new goal.
Pedal bike. Road bike.
I taught myself how to ride an upright 2-wheel bike again, and
wow.
I'll be riding across country a little over 3,000 miles.
And that's summer 2023.
Yes, sir. Summer 2023.
So follow his journey. I'm going to tag your social media.
I will be. Once we get it settled in, we're doing a big fundraiser this week at Spanish Fork High School. That's going to help me fund my bike ride, so that I could post it on social media and have a thing where people can track my journey across, and I'll be blogging and vlogging along the way and sharing how it's going, because I don't only want to be an example for my kids. I want to be an example for anybody that's struggling and having some hardship in their life, that things can get better. You are capable of more than we think we are, and that's my mission on this bike ride across the country.
Cool. I love it. Well, to end the podcast, I ask the same question to all my guests. You've covered it a little bit, but if you could expand on it, that'd be great. That is, if there's one message you want to leave with your kids when you're no longer here, what is that message?
I want them to believe in themselves, like I believe in them, like I've learned to believe in myself. After I got hurt, nobody believed in me. Everyone thought, he's never going to get better. So I had to build that up myself and fight for it myself. I don't want my kids to have to do that. I want them to know that their dad believed in them and that they are so much stronger than they think they are.
I love it. Well, thanks for sharing your experience, your story, and thank you for your service.
I appreciate it.
And thanks for being
here. People say that they wish they could say more than just thank you for your service. People don't understand how much people like me appreciate that small token. It seems small to you, but to me, thank you for your service is so much bigger than you give it credit for. I remember every person at the end of the night when I go to bed, and I'll share with my wife what I remember of people telling me throughout the day, thank you for your service, because I fought for you. That's what I did it for. I fought for you.
Yeah.
I went over there for you. So it means more to me than people think it does. So I thank you. I appreciate your support.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Cool.